Perfect. All right. Uh, there we go. So thank you. My name is Susan Soares. I'm, as I said, certified life and weight loss coach. And I am participating in this Pay It Forward coaching through the Life Coach University and my dear friend Deanne, who offered me this opportunity. If anybody knows Deanne, you know she's an amazing woman who just has these incredible ideas and then decides, I'm going to make this a reality, and does it. Really, truly an inspiration. And so she started this Pay It Forward coaching, and I'm honored that I can be a part of that for all of you. We really are wanting to get the word out as far as the effects that coaching has had on the lives of so many people. And it usually starts with the coaches, right? So people who become life coaches usually have had a positive experience with life coaching. So that's been great for me. And so I have been getting coached for a little over a year. I started back in October of 2019. I started my practice as a coach back in March, April, when I started taking clients, and became certified in September. And I'm certified through the Life Coach School, which is a company here in the U.S. Um, who just turns out tons and tons of life coaches. And we have a great community of support within each other. So I also owner of the Change Over Time life coaching company, where I work with women who want to achieve certain goals that they never thought that they could do. And we work together to not just change what they're doing, but change how they're thinking about what they're doing. And I get to see potential in people before they even believe that they have that potential. They just maybe have a yearning inside that says they want to make some changes. And so I'm very focused on helping them change their thoughts, because once we kind of peel away the layers of these thoughts and beliefs that are just so limiting in our minds, that really keep us right there in the status quo. Once those limiting beliefs are gone, or they're manageable, I'll say, because I think they never truly go away, we just try to believe them less and less, it is pretty much guaranteed that they will be able to achieve their goals. It's just these thoughts that are getting in their way. So that's kind of who I work with, people who want to achieve their goals. And so I also truly have a sense that it's not really about the actions that you take when you're trying to make a change. It's really about the thoughts that you have that are either leading you to a certain action or leading you to avoid a certain action. So in our life coaching school, we have what's called the model. In my previous life, I was a clinical social worker. And so I've used cognitive behavioral therapy for many years in my practice. And so this is a very similar model, in that there's circumstances in our lives that we have no control over. And they happen out there. And then we evaluate those circumstances through our own lenses. And I always hold up my glasses, because our lenses through which we see the world are our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and about the world around us. And so then those certain thoughts produce feelings. We have an emotional response to the thought that we're thinking. And all of the actions that we take are taken from a place of, what are we feeling? So based on our feelings, we either take an action or we don't take an action, right? We avoid an action, or we resist doing an action. And then the results that that creates over time in our lives are the reality we live in, right? Our results. So I want you to think about if anybody has ever tried dieting, for example. You get put on some diets have a strict, I almost said protocol. That's what we do. They almost have a strict rules about these are foods you can eat. These are the foods you can't eat. Think Atkins, right? So the Atkins was a low and no carb diet. And it was very strict. And it got you to change your behaviors as far as the food that you ate. But changing your behaviors over time doesn't really get to the root of why were you overeating in the first place? And so I feel like it's our thoughts that really drive us to the point where we're getting to the root of the problem, right? So if our action is overeating, we overeat based on a feeling that we're experiencing. And then there's a thought before that that leads us to that feeling. And so this is where I like to hang out, kind of that thought line. And I also want to kind of level set with you. When I am talking about thoughts, I'm talking about those sentences in our brains that some of them repeat over time and just repeat and repeat and repeat. But they're really just things that we tell ourselves, about other people, about our world, about whatever the situation is, our homes, right? So I can look around my house and I can say, my house has too much clutter, right? Just being honest. There's a screen here for a reason. My house has too much clutter. That is really just a thought. When I think my house has too much clutter, I feel a little bit overwhelmed, right? I get kind of antsy. It's uncomfortable for me and I feel that in my body. And then I might take action from that thought, that feeling, but oftentimes the overwhelm that I feel causes me to not take action. And so that's kind of the link for us about our thoughts. So that's what I mean when I say our thoughts are kind of sentences in our head. So one example that I kind of was thinking of that I took from years ago, thoughts come to us in all different places. So a thought that I had for many years was women don't make more money than their husbands. Right. So I don't know how many of you can kind of relate to that, but that's the idea. Women, that's a thought that I had. I am struggling to not believe that, but it's possible that a woman could make more money than her husband. There's plenty of examples of this. So the reason why we can tend to hang on to some of these thoughts is our brains are hardwired. And that hardwired part of our brain helps us to survive. And our brains are hardwired to do three things for us, right? To keep us safe, right? Keep us safe from any harm, to avoid any kind of pain or discomfort, and to seek pleasure, right? If anybody knows, it's called kind of the motivational triad. And so when it comes to that, there are things that we do very instinctually that when we have certain ideas or we allow ourselves to have certain goals, our brains may say things to us like, it's too hard. You're never going to get there. And I was listening to a podcast by my friend Corey Lynn, and she was saying how our brains actually, in order to kind of feel the slightest bit of balance, for every negative thought, every limiting thought, every thought that includes things like, I should be doing this, or I need to be doing this, or kind of beating yourself up, we need like 5 positive thoughts as well. And so those 5 positive thoughts are things like, I can do this, or maybe I can do this. And we'll talk more about kind of the a thought ladder that I like to call it. But our brain operates, I call it the primitive brain. It's the part of your brain that is very instinctual, very impulsive, and it gives us all these thoughts when maybe you know, they're not very useful anymore, right? So back in the day, in order to survive, we needed to have these thoughts. We needed to have this motivation to perpetuate the species and survive and eat and get our food and go out of the cave sometimes. But it's not very useful anymore because a lot of us have a market that we can go to, and we don't have wild animals chasing us. So our brains haven't yet caught up with where we are today in our society. So oftentimes we really struggle with coming up with those thoughts, challenging those thoughts. So what I want to take you through today, because I have this belief that all of our thoughts are optional, right? So I want that to sit with you for a little bit. So I have a belief that our thoughts are optional. And what would that mean for you if your thoughts were optional? Right? I want you to think about some of the thoughts that you have. And maybe you're someone who journals, or maybe you're someone who's getting coaching. And you've identified some thoughts that are not serving you, right? In um, in our school, we talk about thought downloads, basically journaling, kind of writing down what you're thinking at the moment, just allowing yourself to kind of get it all out on paper. And by doing this, we have the opportunity to kind of see in front of us, even take a step away and say, huh, look at that. I'm thinking all these thoughts. And when we evaluate our thoughts, maybe putting them through a model, we get to see which ones are really serving us, which ones are kind of in line with our goals or in line with who we want to be, if we know who that person is, and which are not. And then we have an opportunity to explore those thoughts. And so I'm going to take you through a bit of an exercise, and I would love as much participation as you can. So thinking about a thought that you have that is not serving you, right? So I can go back to the clutter in my house. So a thought that I have is that my house is too cluttered, right? I could go through and count how many things are in my house or in my bedroom, um, which would give us kind of a actual factual number, but I have this thought. And so I'm wondering if you all have been able to identify if there are thoughts that you have that you feel like are not serving you. So thinking about maybe a recent journaling that you did, or a recent thought download that you may have done. And I want you to go to the Q&A, and if you wouldn't mind, and you can post in the Q&A as an anonymous attendee, so I don't have to use your name. But if you would like to post something in the Q&A that is a thought that you've been thinking that maybe is not serving you. And so, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys have been posting in the Q&A and I haven't even been responding, but thank you so much. Okay, so right. So yeah, one negative thought. For every negative thought, we kind of need the five positive thoughts just to kind of balance out. So another person posted, if my thoughts are optional, why do I spin in negativity? Right? That's a great question. You probably spin in negativity because you're caught up in that pattern of you have a negative thought or a thought that makes you experience a feeling that maybe is more challenging, you take your action, and then the result that you create is usually just reinforces the thought that you have. And so the why is, I think about the kind of figuring out the why is maybe something that happens later on. The first thing to do is the what, right? What am I thinking? What are these different negative thoughts that I'm having? And, or thoughts that kind of make me feel that negativity. Then that's the first part. All right. So some of you posted, thank you. So the thought that I had this morning was, he doesn't support my dreams. So he doesn't support my dreams is a thought that probably leads you to feel maybe sad, maybe disappointed, something along those lines. Good. I don't have enough time. That's also, it's a great one. I have this thought quite a bit. I've gotten lots of coaching on it, but it still creeps up. This kind of scarcity mentality where I know it's just not enough. And oftentimes what happens when we have that thought, it's not enough, we kind of feel anxious, or we get worried. And that sometimes leads us to do everything other than what we need to get done. Do you ever find that? That when you feel like you don't have enough time, or you're never going to be able to do what you need to do in this amount of time. And then next thing you know, you find yourself completely distracted looking at, something. I'm just thinking of my brain, squirrel outside or a bird that lands on the tree in front of your office. And you kind of distract yourself basically so you don't have to feel so uncomfortable. And then that just creates the fact that you don't have enough time. So another good one, I should be further along, right? Those shoulds and those need to are two words that I have noticed in my vocabulary, that almost any time that they are in a sentence, in a thought in my mind, it usually means I feel pressure, right? It usually means I think I should be doing something that I'm not doing. And for me, that usually leads to, again, more spinning. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well. All right. So thought, I think my son is getting rude. He's copying other kids, and I'm blaming the other child's parents. And now I had loads of bad thoughts about my son, about the other child, and the parents, and now me as a parent. Oh, there's a lot in there. So those are a lot of thoughts. So what I would encourage you to do for this exercise that I'm gonna take you through, I want you to try to narrow it down to maybe one thought, right? So oftentimes we want to tackle the big picture. And so when we're focusing on our thoughts, I want you to try to narrow down a little bit and think of which is the thought maybe that you want to change the most, or which is the thought that you really want to start working on, whatever that might be. I'm sorry, I had to turn the heater on. I'm getting so cold. So you might hear a little hum in the background. All right. I'm not a good enough friend. What would that mean? I'm not a good enough friend. How do you know you're not a good enough friend? Thought, I don't have enough time, not enough money, not enough energy. These are great. These are great limiting beliefs. They create, excuse me, they create situations in our lives, I imagine, that just reinforce, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy. I should be happier with where I am. Then I feel guilty for not being happy with what I have. Yes, so the guilt comes from the thought I'm not happy with what I have. Very good. All right. So let me find my picture. All right. I'm going to share with you a picture that I found. I need to move this over. All right. This over. All right. So can you see the picture of my stream with all the rocks on it? Great. Thank you. All right. So I want you to think about yourself and this thought that you're having, whatever the thought is for you that you decided that you want to work on for this exercise. And I want you to think about yourself on one side of the banks of the stream, right? This is where you currently are. This is you accepting that you have a thought that you would like to change. And I want you to picture being on one side of this little, it's a stream. It's not really a river, not enough water to be a river. Being on one side of the stream. And I want you to picture that all those little rocks throughout the stream that you can see are all other thoughts. Other thoughts that will move you from one side of that stream to the other. So in some cases, and in some instances, this might be called a thought ladder. I like to have a picture. I like to picture myself on the stream. And so just stay with me. So you have a thought that's not serving you. And you want to get to the other side, meaning there's a thought that you'd prefer to have, right? Maybe a belief you'd prefer to have that is waiting for you on the other side of that stream. So I want you to go back to your Q&A, and I want you to kind of, you have your first thought. And so I'm going to go back to, he doesn't support my dreams. Okay. I want you to think that thought, he doesn't support my dreams. And I want you to try to identify, what thought do you want to think? And is it, so you have a thought that you don't want to have any longer, that you think is a limiting belief. What is a thought that you'd rather have? What is the thought that's kind of waiting for you on the other side of that river? So I want you to find your Q&A. And if anybody's having trouble kind of coming up with a thought that they want to think, kind of someplace they want to get to, I'd be happy to help you out with that. So one of the thoughts was, I'm not a good enough friend. And so thinking about the kind of ideal, like I am the best person to have as your friend. Like I am an awesome friend. I would do anything for my friend, whatever the thought is for you. So he doesn't support my dreams, to he doesn't get in my way, but he doesn't get excited about my dreams. Yeah, that's certainly looks like it could be a step on the way, but is there really a thought that you'd rather think? Something that's going to get you to a place of wherever you want to be with that thought. Like, do you want to he doesn't support my dreams. I kind of think of, he doesn't support my dreams and he should. Like that's his job. And I support my dreams. There you go. All right. So he doesn't support my dreams, but I support my dreams. So keep working on the thought that you want to, and I'd love to see some more posts of thoughts and ways that you want to change your thoughts, because this is all about, there are some times in our lives where we can sit down and identify a thought and decide that this is a thought that I've been thinking for a really long time. And it's not a thought that's serving me, and I want to make a change with it. So I'm going to stop with the clutter because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm going to buffer my clutter thoughts. But one of the thoughts that I had, prior to starting a business, prior to starting, the life coaching is, the idea that, I'm a really good starter, but I'm not a very good finisher. Right. So this is a thought that I've had for years that comes up a lot when I start projects, right? I get really excited. I start something, I get interested in doing it. And then sometimes I kind of peter out. I'm not a very good finisher, or things will go undone. Things that I've started will go undone for years, right? I'm just being totally transparent with you all. So there's a thought that I have does not serve me, right? That I'm a good starter and not a good finisher. Because when I think I'm not a good finisher, I feel less than is the emotion. And from that place of less than, there's no motivation to do the thing that I wanted, that I originally said I was starting. And so from the thought of I'm not a finisher to the point where I feel less than, I don't take action to get my thing done. And I prove to myself over and over and over again that I am not a good finisher, to the point where when I say it, it feels like a fact. This is just how I am. This is who I am. I'm not a good finisher. But we are not our thoughts, particularly the negative ones. So I would put kind of that thought, I'm not a good finisher, on one side of the stream. And on the other side of the stream, I'm going to put, I finish everything I start. That's where I'm going. Everything I start, I finish. Or I decide, I'm going to add this in. I would like, so I'm having this is my challenge. I'm going to share my challenge in my head right now. When I say to myself, I finish everything I start, inside my brain's going, oh my God, you'll never be able to do that. You'll never be able to finish everything you start. And I immediately start thinking, okay, maybe that's not a thought that I'm ever going to get to. And my brain literally in this moment just said to me, well, maybe it's you finish everything you start, or you decide not to finish, right? That's where my brain went just now. And that feels much more of like a doable thing, that I'm either going to decide I don't want to do it anymore and I don't finish, or I finish everything that I start. So it's challenge. You just saw it. But I am going to stick with I finish everything I start. It's not very believable to me at this moment. And that's the point. right? So you have a thought that you know is not serving you, and you want to get to a thought that you think will serve you, right? I finish everything I start. So any idea that I had, if I started working on it, I will see it through. I will finish it. Every project that I start, I will see it through to the end. And like when I think about that thought, having that thought, there's not going to be anything I can't do, right? So yes, so a thought, I don't have enough time to do the things I want to do, to I have enough time to do everything I want, right? That is a thought that's waiting for you on the other side. So I want to go back to our picture, and I want you to see all those rocks in the middle. And I want you to think about those rocks as the steps and the thoughts that you may need to think to get you across that street. So when we talk about making adjustments to our thoughts, we have practiced this thought, whatever it is. I'm not a good enough friend. I don't have enough time. He doesn't support my dreams. We've thought these thoughts over and over and over again. They're very practiced, right? And we live what we practice. And in order to counteract that thought, remember, we have to have like 5 different thoughts just to try to counteract that thought. And so you're not going to get to the point where we want to get to the point where you can adjust that thought ever so slightly to move you a little bit closer, right? Move you on that first rock to step on off the bank and stay there. And you practice that thought. And maybe it's just more of a neutral thought. And oftentimes what we do with these thoughts is we either give them a prefix or a pre-thought or an end thought, a suffix. So you can have the thought, or I can have the thought, I just lost my train of thought. I have to get it back now. I'm not a good finisher. And what if we just added the word yet to the end of that sentence? So this is an example of making a slight tweak to a thought that helps us move a little bit closer to what our goal thought might be, which, as I mentioned, is I finish everything I start, right? So right now, I think I'm not a good finisher. And if I wanted to practice tweaking that thought, I would say, I'm not a good finisher yet. Or, yeah, I'm not a good finisher yet. And so thinking about some of your thoughts, yes, thoughts are waiting for you. A master life coach that I absolutely adore, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't adore, Bev Aaron, was saying, like, you are one thought away from your goal thought. Like, what if you were one thought away from your goal thought, or one model away from achieving your goal? Yes. So we practice these other thoughts and they just feel very automatic, and we go through our lives proving them true. You know, it's very hard to argue with somebody who has, 12 different things that are unfinished, in her mind and in actuality. Like, I could show you all the dismantled chairs, dining room chairs I have downstairs. 2 years, dining room chairs. Okay, so thinking about I'm not a good finisher yet. Some of the other things you could add to the end of your current thought that would move you closer are things like, I'm working towards being a good finisher. I'm working towards finishing the things that I've started. And I want you to try out some of these thoughts. So taking your original thought kind of on one side of the stream and try putting something at the end of that thought or something at the beginning of the thought. So whether it's just the word yet, or whether it's I'm learning to become someone who finishes what they've started. Whatever it is, it has to be believable to you right now, right? So you can't say, I finished 50% of everything that I start. Like, that's just not believable to me. I'm still not finishing things. So I want you to think about your thought that you had originally. And I want you to practice and go ahead and pop it in the Q&A and see if you can tweak that thought to get you a little bit closer. So he supports some of my dreams. Yeah, if that is a believable thought to you, that's a great thought to have. And sometimes, so this was something else that I get a lot of coaching. I sit on coaching calls. And so one really interesting thought that I had, or that came out of a coaching session, was sometimes your thought that you have brings you kind of directly across the stream. So he doesn't support my dreams, to he supports some of my dreams. What if you almost kind of take a side step and say, he doesn't have to support my dreams. I have to support my dreams, which is kind of the thought that you had gotten to already. One of the thoughts that you had listed up there. So sometimes it's just you go from having this thought to a neutral thought or something that's just not kind of directly in line, but it's still something other than he doesn't support my dreams. Right? All right. Let's see. I'm not organized enough yet. Yeah. Just tweaking that one thing, I think, is helpful. Anybody else have any other, for my coaching friends out there, any other suggestions as far as things that you do to help yourself or your clients transition as far as some of these thoughts? Sometimes I'd like to ask myself questions like, what if I could be somebody who finishes what they start? What if I could be somebody who has enough time to do everything I need to do? That kind of what if. I don't suggest that you practice that what if thought, but it usually can get you to a place where you may be able to come up with a thought that you could practice. So, what if you could? And then answer that question. What if you could be somebody who finishes what you started? I would get a lot more things done. I would probably get a lot more things done. Oh, that's a great one. So thank you. Having, you have your thought. So I'm not someone who finishes everything they start. And that's okay. Right? So just those 3 words, and that's okay. At the end of it, allows us a bit of an acceptance about which side of the stream we're on. So often, I work with clients who will say, that they have this thought and they say, I don't want to think that thought anymore. I just want to put it away. And that might work for a period of time. But if it's a really well practiced thought, having the thought and then just saying, I don't want to think that anymore, doesn't always work. It may work in some situations. You may find that in some situations, you can tweak a thought with a single other thought and you're over, you're there, you're on the other side. But chances are pretty good that thought's going to continue to come up, and resisting it and pushing it away and not acknowledging the impact that that thought has on your life oftentimes won't leave you open to looking at how you can change it, right? I mean, that makes sense, right? If something comes up and we say, I don't want to see this, and we take it and we put it in, a jar over here, whatever it might be, that thought may come back up to us. That just kind of putting it away from our vision doesn't allow us to do anything with it. It just cuts us off from that thought. And for the ones that are really practiced, we have to do, again, like, think about it, 5 other thoughts. So this is a great one. So he doesn't support my dreams, and that's okay because I believe in my dreams. Yeah. And so I'm wondering for our anonymous attendee, how close are you to that other side of the stream when you think that thought? My husband doesn't support my dreams, and that's okay because I believe in my dreams. Over time, as you approach new thoughts, as you work to generate a new thought, you want to keep track of these things. So again, another master certified coach that I adore was talking this week about, she has a journal. And so she went through and when she was first starting coaching, and this is something I'm going to start doing as well. When she was first starting coaching, she wrote down kind of all those limiting beliefs that she had. And she would start kind of with, okay, what is a thought that's less negative, more towards the neutral side even than what I think now. And then for every limiting belief she had a new thought that she would practice. And then once that new thought really was practiced enough that she felt like she was there, like she had that thought now. It was really came to her pretty automatically. Then she would push it the next step and try to come up with another one. And I want you to picture yourself moving across this stream, right? Stepping on the rocks. Now, some of those rocks look pretty slippery, right? Some of the thoughts that we have are going to be pretty slippery. And identifying what, identifying what those thoughts are that are more slippery may be helpful to you, because they may be ones that you need to pay more attention to stay on for a little while longer because they may be more elusive to you. But eventually the ideas that she was talking about was when she would go back to these lists of all her limiting beliefs, like now, years later, it was almost unreal that she that she ever thought some of those limiting beliefs because of what she's able to think about herself today. And those limiting beliefs and those limiting thoughts oftentimes just keep us, again, really right where we are, stagnated, and don't allow us to grow in a way that moves us closer to the goals that we want, right? So identifying what are these thoughts that are getting in our way, doing that through thought downloads, journaling, worksheets, anything that your coach can give you, or anything that you can find, just self-exploration. What am I thinking? Why? Why do I think that? Why do I continue to think that? Because in some ways, it's probably serving some purpose, right? So if I have that thought, I'm not a good finisher, and I prove it to myself over and over again, when it comes time to try new things, I'm not as likely to try new things because I have that thought, I'm not going to finish it. And so hanging on to that keeps me from branching out, keeps me from taking on more things that may be fulfilling to me. Yeah. So that thought, he doesn't support my dreams, and that's okay because I believe in my dreams, gives you some sense of belief, relief, sorry, because you have that belief in yourself. That's very powerful. So thinking about moving across the stream, I want you to hang on to that image. The other thing in our school, what we call it, is kind of that river of misery. So you're on kind of one bank with thought you have, and you want to get to the other bank. And sometimes we call it the river of misery. I don't like misery so much. I wouldn't choose to think that changing my thoughts is miserable. So my take on it, my spin on it is we're just crossing a stream, right? And it might get slippery and we might get wet and we might stumble and fall. We may have to go back to that original side of the river. And like, as you can see in our picture, it looks like there's lots of different paths across, right? There is not just one path across. And so allowing our brains an opportunity to explore, what would it be like to tweak a thought? Just putting the word yet at the end, putting the words, I'm not a good finisher, and that's okay. I'm having a hard time believing that one right now. I might just stick with the I'm not a good finisher yet. And then I'm becoming someone who finishes what they started. If I think that thought, I'm becoming someone who finishes what they start, it gives me a little more motivation to take action. So if I have a little more motivation to take action, and I take that action, then my result is going to be proving that thought. I'm becoming someone who finishes what they start. And that just reinforces my thought that I want to think on purpose and not just this automatic thought that has plagued me for so long. Anybody else want to share a transition thought that they have, or anybody struggling with a thought that they feel like they just can't move into neutral or move off of that original limiting thought? Just go ahead and pop anything in the Q&A. Because there is another thought. It's waiting for you. It's like that next rock, right? It's a really pretty picture. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions about any of this? So have negative thoughts. So I have negative thoughts. That is kind of one side of the bank. And then a tweak to that is I can have positive thoughts. Maybe something else is I'm becoming someone who practices positive thoughts. I love Michelle Obama's title for her book, Becoming. I just feel like that word encompasses hope and promise that you're not perfect, right? But you're constantly, I feel like, and the thought that I tell myself is I'm constantly in a state of becoming. I'm becoming the best possible version of myself, right? And that is a thought that I can believe. Right? So exploring what are some of the thoughts that you can believe about yourself, that you're going to allow yourself to believe on purpose. It takes practice. I have a woman that I coach with, and she was telling me that every day she writes 3 pages, and that it's a combination of journaling and prayer and meditation, and it's kind of all rolled up into one. And she does this every morning. And those are the times when we can get into those habits of practicing things. So oftentimes habits, you may have heard this, I've heard it in many books, habit stacking, right? So maybe there's a habit that you do every day already, right? I think about brushing my teeth. So when I brush my teeth, that is something I do every day, twice a day. And if I wanted to, I could spend time practicing my new thoughts while I'm brushing my teeth, right? It's a pretty, you go here, you go in, you go in, you go out. Like my toothbrush is on a timer. So every 30 seconds, I move it around. I can pretty much do it in my sleep. So habit stacking means that during that time when I'm already guaranteed to do something, I will also do this other thing, right? So some of the ways that I encourage you to practice your thoughts are to write them down, definitely. If you have a whiteboard or something, just put down those thoughts that you want to be practicing. Often you can do a voice recording. So any of you who are still working and commuting to work, you're guaranteed to sit there for however long your commute is, on a bus or on a subway or wherever you are. You can use that time to stack those habits and practice those things. All right, so let me just read some more of these before we start wrapping up. So I can practice positive thoughts more and more. Yes, that's even a thought that you could believe, right? I'm someone who knows I can practice things. I can practice things. I can learn new things. It's never too late, and you are never too old to learn new things. All right. Yes, when you're feeling really down and you're like, oh, positivity might not be possible. Um, Sometimes when you're feeling down, it's you, depending on the reason you're feeling down, you might not want to change the feeling down. Like we can talk about feelings another time. Yes, I am becoming positive, changing. Give yourself permission. That's wonderful. Give yourself permission to think positive thoughts. You are worth it. You are worth it because you are here. Oh, this was so great. All right. I want to thank Deanne again. If you all are interested in getting in touch with me, this is a quick QR code. Look at, I matched my branding. How cool. Thank you, Joshua, who did that. And I want to remind you that if you got something out of this today, pay it forward, right? Share some of your positive thoughts with someone else, right? Help other people identify that just because they think this one way, it's just a thought. It's just a sentence in our mind. And the one thing I know about us as humans is we like to change our mind. Sometimes we like to share what we've learned here. And so I'd like you to think about what you're going to do to pay it forward. I am so grateful that I've had this opportunity. Thank you, Deanne, for giving me this opportunity. And we're going to be back next month. So I'm going to be doing these on the second Saturday of every month. I might switch up the time because there are some people who it's like 2 a.m. where they are, and that's not so good. And so I might switch up the time, but everything will be posted in the Life Coach University. And so feel free to head back there. And thank you so much, everybody. I wish you all the thoughts that lead you across our streams. And you can share your Pay It Forward stories on the website. We love to see your stories. Some of them are so amazing. So if you're at all interested in what you did to pay it forward, we'd love to hear that back from you. All right. Write down their thoughts. Yes, tell your friends. Help them through this. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care.